Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to our best chess games of all time series. So in this series we're following the best of the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history, and today I wanted to show a really brilliant game that was played in 1974 between the magician from Riga, Mikhail Tal, and Michael Francis Stean. So Michael Francis Stean is also really respected master from the last century. I've covered one of his games. It was really incredible with so many beautiful tactical shots. So he was also a sharp attacker, but Mikhail Tal, of course, was really a magician of this beautiful game that we love to play, because his attacks were so furious. They were so dynamic with so many tricks and traps. So that's why we prepared this. Is again simply Misha stuff, because we have really the most beautiful tactical elements of the Najdorf Sicilian. So let's check out now the game. So Misha opened with the move e4. We have c5 by Michael Francis Stean, the Sicilian. Knight to f3, d6, d4, c takes d4, knight to d4, and now after move knight to f6, knight to c3, the game is becoming more and more flexible. There are plenty of ways what black can do. The Dragon Sicilian, the Lascar Pelican, Najdorf, and similar stuff. The Chevening with the move e6 and similar ideas. So as I said here, Michael Francis Stean plays now the move a6, which is now the Najdorf Sicilian. We have now bishop to g5. We have e6 because there is always this positional threat. Bishop to f6, then after g takes f6 or e takes f6, the pawn structure could be messed up. So that's why the move e6. We have now f4 here by Mikhail Tal, preparing also in some occasions the move e5. So that's why knight from b to d7, which is controlling also further the f6, but also controls the potential e5 square. So here in the continuation we have queen to f3 by Mikhail Tal, because he's indirectly attacking now the rook on a8. If b5 happens, then with the move e5 there could be really a beautiful discovered attack against the knight, against the rook on a8. Here we have queen to c7. Here Michael Francis Stean is now preparing b5, because after move e5 then bishop to b7 could cover, of course, this very important diagonal. So these are the tiny little tricks that you can see in the Najdorf Sicilian. So I think it's an often and popular line that we see now, still played now very often now these days. But after move queen to c7, of course, Mikhail Tal castles immediately. Now after move b5, which is now an immediate expansion on the queen side, and it's actually not a mistake here by Michael Francis Stean that he made, but it's now provoking here some tactics around the square b5. Still, these days now the engine don't like this move bishop to b5 that Mikhail Tal pulled off, because this position, if black plays now the game perfectly, is defendable, I think, here from black. So you have to be now really accurate in your attack from white's perspective. If you play just one inaccurate move, I think you can get smashed. So as I said, be careful with this bishop to b5 tactic. It's a tactic that maybe some really rare players can do. So I would not recommend you this line, but as I said, Misha was from a different planet. I think he played now the sharpest line of the Najdorf. So here after move bishop to b5, knight to b5, attacking the queen, queen to b8, controlling now also the d6 square, and now e5. Now comes this idea, as I said, discovered attack. The problem is now that you cannot escape from this idea. Even if you retreat, for instance, something like knight to b8, then you get this tactical shot. That's also something that you should be careful about, because after queen to a8 now you get knight to c7, the fork, and white is winning here the size of material. So this is now the tactic that Mikhail Tal prepared here with the move e5. So that's why the only way is to play, of course, bishop to b7, attacking the queen, and now queen to e2. This is the only move that Mikhail Tal has to play here in order to stay in the game. Every other move is simply too passive, because with the move queen to e2 we want to get our queen on the c file, and there is not another way how to get the queen on the c file, because from the square c4 we want, of course, to control further the c7. We want to create a fork on c7. So that's why it was very important now for Mikhail Tal to find the accurate square for the queen, because if you play, for instance, something like queen to e3, then you cannot include anymore your queen on the c file. You cannot play queen to c5 because this square is taken. So very important stuff, queen to e2. So now after d takes e5, we have now this idea, queen to c4, preparing knight to c7, and now comes the critical moment of the game. I think many of us would play the same move like Michael Francis Stean did here, because there is a principle in chess: you should bring your pieces on the most active squares. But sometimes these principles are not working, because here after move bishop to c5, e5, which is of course the most accurate, most aggressive square for the bishop, sorry. It's a huge problem now because the knight is a little bit overloaded to the defense of both of these pieces, and that's now a huge tactical problem here for black. The better idea is simply to play bishop to e7. Bishop e7, it has to be played, I think, because your pieces are more compact here, and at least the knight is not stuck to the defense of the bishop on c5. In the continuation, after bishop to e7, of course, black could get challenged with the move knight to c7, but after king to f8, if you want to grab the rook, you can do it. But still, I think getting two pieces for the rook is a huge advantage here for black. And in the near future, there is also a b file attack and a file attack, so the activity of black's pieces, I think, will be improved in a couple more moves. So also the engine likes here much better black's position. So as I said, after move bishop to c5, the knight gets overloaded on d7, so that's why here Mikhail Tal plays immediately bishop to f6, gives up the bishop for a knight, and now the problem is now that you cannot take, of course, with the knight. Knight to f6 is not possible because the bishop on c5 is not defended anymore. So that's why you have to play g takes f6. And now what black is hoping for is to somehow, of course, play something like bishop to c6, protect the knight, and then kingside castling. So black needs, I think, at least 2 more tempi, maybe 3, 4, just to regroup. What I mean about that, black needs really 3, 4, maybe 5 even moves just to somehow get again a solid position, to get out of this tactical mess, maybe then to continue the game with the whole piece up. So as I said, it's really well to defend his position, and Mikhail Tal shows now here again his beautiful tactical skills. He's not allowing here black to secure the king, he's not allowing here black to breathe, and now he pulls off really a sick, brutal tactic. He plays now rook takes d7. The problem about the rook to d7 is actually that you're not winning the bishop, because here Michael Francis Stean played this intermediate check, bishop to e3, and after king to b1, here Michael Francis Stean finally took rook to d king takes the rook on d7, but the king gets exposed a little bit now in the center of the board, and here Mikhail Tal, of course, includes now this other rook into the game. So now this is a beautiful check, and still I think there is a way to get out of this mess if you play, for instance, something like king to e8. You have to get out of this idea, and the only way that I think white can continue the game is finally to play knight to c7. Still, white is probably better here because this rook, although black is up a whole rook, is not playing the game. The rook hasn't participated in the game, so it's, I think, a weird position. But here Michael Francis Stean even played a worse continuation after move rook to d1. He played now bishop to d4. The problem is now after f takes e5 that Mikhail Tal pulled off. Even if you try f takes e5, because of course if you try queen to e5, then this bishop will be taken, so the only way to protect it is of course f takes e5. The problem is now after knight to d4, e takes d4, queen to d4. Now the queen creates a check, but also the problem is now you cannot get with the king on the 8th rank. If you do that, then of course the rook will be taken. So really wild stuff, really wild tactics here by Mikhail Tal. So that's why king to e7 was played, but now queen to c5, again a new check. We have king to f6, and now rook to f1. So now the queen and the rook are working really in a wild way here. So here in the continuation we have king to g6, and now queen to e7. Very important move to now also try this checkmate ideas here around the square f7. If you try here, that wasn't played in the game, if you try queen to f8 to get more pieces into the defense, this is not working, because then you get queen to f6, and here after king to h5 you get rook to f4, and now with rook to h4 the game would be over. So that's why after move queen to e7, here Michael Francis Stean tried now the move f5, tried of course somehow to protect himself, but again queen to e6, we have king to g7. Now again Mikhail Tal creates a new check, we have queen to g6, and now h4, trying of course queen to g5, and then also with rook to f5. Again, really too much pressure here against the king. So here in the continuation we have rook to a5, and now we have h5, a new check. The king gets pieces more and more towards our side of the board. That's exactly how you should play king hunts. When you're playing king hunts, then one of the rules is just to invite your opponent's king on our side of the board, where it gets under the pressure of many pieces. So that's why for queen to h5, this is now already a forced checkmate sequence. We have now queen to f7, king to h4, now queen to f6, we have king to g3, now a new check, king to h2, queen to h4, and after move king to g2, we have rook to f2, king to g1, and now after move knight to e2. Really beautiful king hunt here by Mikhail Tal. It was a checkmate. So really wild stuff. As I said, there were maybe some defensive ideas here for black. Be careful. Let's go back to the critical moment of this defensive idea. Bishop to c5. Don't overload your pieces. Don't when you're on the attack and on the attacking side, you could maybe have a good connection with your pieces. It's sometimes good then to have your pieces protecting each other. But when you're on the defensive side, you don't want to overload one piece, one defensive piece, which is very important. I think the knight on d7 was so overloaded here, and Mikhail Tal, of course, used this moment, sacrificed everything basically just to get more pieces into the game, just to create this beautiful king hunt and create really this attacking brilliancy. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot, especially because it was the Najdorf Sicilian, but as I would like to say, the Najdorf can never be boring. If you want to see more brutal attacks like this, check out my Comment to Chess Games, the best chess games of all time series. Here's the link, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.